Okay, let's do this.
How dirty is my face? Okay.
Welcome back to In the Works. We haven't done one of these vlog style videos in a long time, but today we're excited to show you how we make
our own practical kukri. Over the last year, we sold a ton of them. You guys obviously like them. So we're gonna show you the entire process of how we make them, start to finish. That's good. That's good. You keep filming this. This is pretty good. Keep doing it. Just gonna really get this going. All right. Yeah, you guys want blacksmithing sounds? Those are going to be the sounds. Enjoy. To begin our kukri, and this is going to be 6 or 7 kukri, we take a bar of 80 CRV, 80 CRV2, but if you add the 2 when you talk about it, you're pretentious. So it is just 80 CRV right now. And I cut it up into blanks. So to cut it up into blanks, I go to use my good old trusty vise and clamp it. That's what vise do. Then, are we making large one or small ones, man?
medium, I think.
Ugh, medium.
Make large one.
Oh, shit. All right, gonna do 10, I'm gonna do large ones. Large ones, 11 inches. Well, this is gonna be medium. This is gonna be medium. So.
Struggling with that inch thing, huh?
No, the device is all wrong. It's supposed to be metric. And then. Oh yeah, 10 hours of that. 10 hours of this, ASMR. All right, it's 4. It's not 6 or 7. My eyes were bigger than my bar. Happens all the time. All right, let's turn on the power hammer. It's springtime, it's the outdoor season, and if you're looking to add something to your survival kit or the outdoors kit, like this knife, also check out ZocDoc with 150,000 premium in-network providers across all 50 states. See, when you're in the outdoors, you're not next to your favorite doctor. But in your toolkit now is something you can jump in online, you can meet your doctor through a video call, or find one that can see you close by.
And ZocDoc is useful for not just emergencies. We're talking about any kind of specific care, eye care, dentistry, urology, just about every kind of specialist is in their network. And it will help you find exactly what you need when you need it. Most of the time you can be seen within the very same day of trying to book it. And the best part about ZocDoc, it's completely free to use.
You can look at thousands of patient reviews and find the type of doctor that you would like. I hate small talk. I just want my stuff in and out and be gone on my way. And if that's the kind of service that's for you, ZocDoc will help you find the physician that fits.
Just like we try to be kind to old tools, restore them, and put them back into use, be kind to yourself and get ZocDoc. It's completely free. Use ZocDoc.com/thatworks to find and instantly book a top-rated physician within our network. I could probably use a booking right about now myself. Clearly, the first step is to draw a taper into a point on the end of the bar. It can be a symmetrical point. Kukris actually kind of have a symmetrical form, but all the asymmetry comes much later in the forging. Once he's drawn points on the entire batch, it's time to move on to establishing the wasp type shape that will initialize where the handle will be. At the end of this phase, it kind of looks like a throwing knife or a long fish, if you will. But this is kind of setting up the preform to be able to establish where the handle will live on each of these blades.
So the material in these is 80CRV2. Well, we call it 80CRV because the 2 feels pretentious. I keep insisting on that. Now, the reason why we choose 80CRV is that the V stands for vanadium, which reduces grain growth and gives you a little bit more of a fine edge. Other materials might be a little bit better, as the knife nerds have a good video on that. For example, 15N, but 15N is something we use in Damascus primarily. We also got really good at heat treating 80CRV in our kilns. So once you set up for a material, you're kind of committed to it. And 80CRV is very, very, very good for this sort of a product. It keeps a very fine edge. It is very durable. You can get it really, really hard, about 64 Rockwell. And we're sword makers, so the material that we stock is always capable of being used for swords. So whatever we make swords out of, we also make these knives out of. For almost all of the forging, I use 2 radius stop tools that isolate my material and give me the contour that I like, as well as draw out a little bit of the blade, and a radius bottom tool to give my blade a little bit of curve.
Although this isn't some big, elaborate, exciting build video, it is exciting for us to show you guys a process that we have ironed out. I mean, usually you're seeing us get a photo or something from a client who wants us to make something from their video game. We have about 3 or 4 days to like kind of set up and make a plan, but we're forging a new shape for the first time. We're not really tooled up. We don't have it figured out, and we're kind of doing it on the fly and trying our best to make it look professional and as if we know what we're doing. In this case, this is a process we can kind of do with our eyes closed. And I hope that that doesn't come off as boring for you guys or seem like it's just too easy for us, but it's actually pretty relaxing and nice to be able to show you something that, you know, we actually have thought through.
All right, most of the forging is done on these. At some point, some of these will require additional forging. For example, if there's a custom shape that I'd like, but most of them are almost the same. So, for example, some have a little bit more curve here, others less. The reason why we don't standardize them is because you, the viewer and the customer, like slightly different shapes, and we're accommodating you. Now, I could have gone and done a little bit more hand beveling, but at this stage it's not really beneficial, and all I have to do is heat cycle them and anneal them. On a piece like Damascus or something that is a little bit more expensive, I would do more handwork, but in reality, it doesn't produce a practical outcome on a mono steel blade. So right now what I'm going to do, I'm going to wait till they cool off a little bit. I will profile grind them, and then we're going to stick it in the forge, heat them up to critical, and let them cool off slowly in the ash. After which Matt will be ready to do all that pre-heat treat stuff that's necessary. Okay, so there's a little bit more hand forging in them before I heat cycle and anneal them. So what happens is, I was forging in them aggressively in the power hammer. So as they cool off, they become a little bit not straight. And I would like to flare out the handle. After I cut off the excess on the disc grinder, on cutoff wheel, whatever. I still want a nice kick. It's already tapered, but I want it to taper more. The distal taper always goes from the shoulder in both directions, along the tang and down the blade. Always, 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 with the exception of like one or two super specific types of bladed weapons or tools. It's like that with European swords. It's like that especially with Japanese swords. It's like that with modern hunting knives, everything. So we already have the distal taper in the forging. I want to flare it out more by hand, and I want to straighten this out and hand forging. And the reason is I will be hand forging at a somewhat lower temperature than power hammer forging, so it will be less aggressive on the material, and then I will normalize the piece, which will set us up for drilling holes and heat treating.
We actually get asked about how we use ash so much in the shop. Well, we have a charcoal forge, so we always have ash. So we use it for a lot of things. Ash is a good heat insulator for slow cooling when you're annealing or normalizing. It also is a great neutralizer for when you actually use some ferric chloride. You can neutralize the acid afterwards with ash. So we use it a lot because we have a lot of it.
I just use machine oil. You didn't get it? I got it.
The way we came about making more and more of these kukri is kind of a happy little accident. Back in the fall, I was dealing with some personal stuff, and Ilya, knowing me, knew that if my idle hands were allowed to continue to be idle, that I would just dive deep into a bad state of mind. So I came in one morning and he had forged a whole pile of different blades, not just kukri, all kinds of different stuff. And he said, here, grind them, sell them, give me half. I said, all right. So we started doing a weekly drop. Whatever knives we got done, usually 2, sometimes 3 or 4, we would drop them on the website, announce that they were up for sale at a big discount. Well, what sold quickest was kukri. So Ilya decided he was going to start making more of those than other things. He really refined his process. As you can see, the forging goes pretty quickly now, and it kind of forced me to refine how I do it, how I do the grinding, how I do my handles, how I finish those handles, how I sharpen things. And let me tell you, it's felt really great working through a product again. We haven't done that for many years, and we're really good at it. For the vast majority of the heat treating that we do in shop, we use Parks 50 heat treating oil. It quenches very fast, and the only exception to that is when we're using traditional steels like bloomery steel or sometimes crucible steel, where we go into water. But when we're using quench oil, one of the things you really need to do is preheat that oil up to at least around 100 degrees. It changes the viscosity and really makes it more like water, quenches faster, makes a much more reliable heat treat. It's a step that we rarely share with you guys in videos, mostly because of time restraints, but it's a very, very important one. One of the things that we've done now for years is after the quench, we clamp our blades between two boards. In this case, there's a little cardboard added to each board because the thickness of each blade varies a little bit, so it gives you a little cushion. But this is a step that saves a lot of headaches, keeps your blades really straight, and we've been showing you guys this now for years and years, and it's actually feels pretty good that we're now seeing more and more people in the bladesmithing community doing this step and saving you a lot of time in fixturing and having to get warps in your blades out. So it feels good to have had that positive influence on the community. So not only do we have weekly knife drops, but as you can see here, we also have our Japanese bladesmithing hammers back in stock as well. Most of the time when Ilya's forging knives, he's also got some hammerheads in the forge, and we're gonna do our best to keep these in stock. So if you want one of these or one of these, be sure to check out thatworks.shop. So the first step in grinding these blades for me is something that I used to not do, but now I do on every single blade. And that is just edge up, grinding the edge to the center. If there's a little bit of warp, I can get a lot of that out by just centering that edge at a very steep angle, but just making sure it's all centered. And then I can move on to just grinding things how I normally do, whether it's on a platen or down the wheel like this. Having the edge pre-centered lets my hands do the work, and I don't have to keep constantly checking things because the first thing I did was establish the center of the edge. With the bevels now roughed in, it's time to just kind of start using the same kind of rough grit to just rough that scale off. I don't like to use fresh belts and gunk them up with the scale, so I just blitz them over a worn like 36 grit and then move on to truing up all the profiles and whatnot before doing the finished grinding. All right, at this phase, we're ready to go ahead and put the fuller in. I have my surfaces prepped up to a 320, not on the edge because I'll probably pull that edge up towards the fuller a little later, but we're at 320. After that, we go into a acid wash, and then we go straight into a tumbler to produce that nice acid washed finish on our kukri. Now, we do that for durability, and you might be thinking, why don't you do what most makers do and stop at 120? Well, there's a bunch of different reasons why, but the main reason is I don't want to get into bad habits of taking shortcuts. I still have aspirations to becoming a mastersmith, and if I establish bad habits of taking shortcuts, even in a production blade, it might carry over into my nice pieces, and we don't want that. So let's go put a fuller in. One of the things that really kind of stands out about our kukris are these fullers, which follow the natural profile of the blade, so they're curved, and we do that all by freehand grinding. I usually start off with just doing a quick mark like that, and then I follow that with the narrow wheels. I mean, I've gone over the usage of these narrow wheels now for over a year. They're just super handy. They allow, when you're doing fullers, to just have a complete line of sight. And you're basically now drawing on the material instead of having to use jigs and whatnot to create shapes. You can just freehand and play. My good friend and super talented sculptor, Ilya Alekseyev, just got some of these wheels in her hand, and she's posting about it on social media, how useful they are. And it's not just for knife makers. They're really nice across all kind of craftsmanship. Metal, wood, whatever it is you're doing. Allows you to get into places and just be more creative. So head on over to broadbackironworks.com and get yourself a set. You won't regret it. All right, so right out of the heat treat and temper, one of the first things I like to do is to make the handle portion nice and flat. It's gonna have flat wood scales glued to it, so it's fairly important that that surface is nice and even. There's no real secret to this process except that I prefer to use a magnet behind it. Basically, at this point, we're just making flat steel flatter. So at this point, we're at a 320 finish all the way around edge and flats and fuller. The last thing I like to do before I put the blade into etch and then into tumble to get our nice acid wash finish is to use kind of a worn Scotch-Brite. This is a very non-aggressive Scotch-Brite, but it leaves a very nice satin finish. So we're gonna do that on all the surfaces and then get this baby in the etch. Very secret proprietary acid here. Just let this thing sit in the acid for about 10 minutes. Sometimes we forget about them, let them go a little longer. Those are the ones that have the darker color. After that, we'll stick them in the tumbler and let that go on both sides for probably about 20 minutes a piece. You can do them less, you can do them more, depending on how much of that kind of sparkled look you want to the actual texture of the blade. One of the things that we like to do in making a big batch of kukri or a big batch of anything that are pretty much the same is that, well, I'm not really into making a bunch of the same thing anymore. So I always throw in some different details. The first kukri that we showed you in this video, we made very much our kind of standard version. This one, after I strike the fuller end, I want to go in and undo a bunch of aggressive file work on the spine, maybe slap a leopard wood handle on it, something different to make them stand out. That way we're not just putting out the same thing over and over, kind of kills your soul as a maker, but also we like to give variety to the customer. Not everybody likes the same thing. Some people want something basic, some people want something very flamboyant. So this one, I'm going to make a little more, you know, special. To the ash. As I said earlier, ash works as a great neutralizer here for ferrochloride. And if you have a bunch of it, why not use it? Saves you a bunch of money on baking soda or Windex or whatever. You've seen the Stagmer narrow wheel. Now look for the Alekseyev big wheel attachment on drawbackironworks.com.
And you can grind them this too very slowly.
That's
put
right.
a real fine belt right here. And you can cross that out.
So it's like a dual thing, right? While you're tumbling, you can polish an axe.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that.
This is how we do it. Here at That Works, we forge everything that we put out. Everything that we put out on our website is hand forged, whether it's a big run of something like hammers or these kukri knives or custom pieces like swords, rapiers, and the like. One of the reasons why we forged it is because we're simply used to it. Second reason, if I'm working on something that is a really complicated project, I like to be working with my hands as I'm thinking about it. So coming in, forging out a bunch of hammers, a bunch of axes, or a bunch of knives is my way of preparing myself for a big, big, big build video that you will see down the line.
most of the kukri we've been doing, I've been using walnut. And with the walnut, I add a bit of an antique finish to it, meaning I use different dyes, and then I go ahead and hand sand some of the dye off to expose some of the natural wood and just kind of make it look aged, even though it's not aged at all. And people have been digging that, so we're gonna stick with that on this first one, and then I'll probably play around with different handle slabs on some of the other pieces. May seem like a horrible idea to handhold, and it is, but I lock the blade up against the drill press post here and nothing can really rotate on me. One of the things I like to do is to sand the pin material that I'm going to use on my handles for multiple reasons. One, give it a little texture, something for the epoxy to bind to, but also when you're using non-stabilized handle material, that wood can shrink on you and kind of be a little too tight when you go to glue up, cause a little headache. So I shave a little off. You can do it by hand or just slap it in a drill like this to keep everything nice and even. All right, now that our epoxy has set overnight, it's time to shape the handle. By the way, we exclusively use red label abrasives. We start with 24 grit when we're working with our wood handles and progress through the grits. They're just a great company. They make great products and they're really great people. They also make those little nice half-inch belts that we use on the narrow wheels that you see. So check them out. They're going to hook you up with whatever abrasives you need. First thing I do when making these handles is deck the flats of the scales down to where the pins are flush. I like to do this phase before I get too much of the steel perimeter knocking the roughness off the fresh grit belt. So I do a bunch of the flat work and the shaping on the flats before I ever hit the perimeter, because it tends to wear the belt out a little bit every time you touch steel with it. So wood first, then the metal bits later. If only there was a way to find healthcare near me right now. So this part might seem kind of obvious, I guess. I just sand it to shape, mostly on the wheels, then I use a sponge to like take all those sharp facets and give them a nice smooth texture. One of the most important things about one of these handles, or knife handles in general, is that it feels good in the hand. So you can make nice sharp facets, but one of the things I always like to do is kind of just slightly round over all those facets. Even if it's not a visible round over, it just needs to feel nice and tactile in your hands and comfortable. So, pro tip of the day, and this may be obvious to some people, but I just thought about it recently. I go through a ton of these sponges, and I have these little belt erasers from Red Label Abrasives to clean off the belts on a belt sander, but you can use it on these sponges and 10x the life you get out of them. It really saved me a lot of money on buying new sponges, so I hope that little tip helps you, especially when you're using wood. Those things get gunked up. Just use those erasers. Saves you a lot. A little 1200 grit at the end. Just kind of catch all the corners and kind of fade it away a little, make it look like it's been used and just naturally had some of this color rub off over time. Remaining Johnson's wood tracks. That on there. I will do my ball. Oh, there's a cigarette. No, I will. Slum life. Scratchless pink compound. It was actually a lot of fun doing one of these in the works vlog style in the day of videos. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. Thanks for watching this episode of In the Works. We really enjoy showing you guys what happens here on a day-to-day basis when we're not doing some big fancy build. We hope you enjoyed this style of video. Let us know in the comments if you'd like to see more of these. We'd enjoy doing more of these. And if you like any of these kukri that we made in this video, they are available right now on thatworks.shop. And if you don't make it there in time to get those, remember, we're doing weekly knife drops every single week on the website. Be sure to check back very often and get yourself something we make. They go on sale every week at a major discount. And if you enjoyed this video, please check out our most recent build right here.